Welcome to Everyday Ministry, a podcast from Matthias Media, which will explore how God uses ordinary people and ordinary means to do ministry. You're invited into our conversations, both Marty Sweeney and myself, Lindsey Yeagley. Together, we'll discuss everyday things and how opportunities for ministry exist in every moment. Whether you're a seasoned pastor, key leader, or simply someone growing in gospel work, this podcast is for you. Everyday Ministry is a conversation for all Christians to participate and grow in gospel work.
Hello, everybody. This is Marty Sweeney with another episode of Everyday Ministry, and I'm here with Lindsey Yeagley.
Hello.
Hi, Lindsey.
How's it going?
Good. Hey, you were telling me just the other day that you brought a non-Christian friend to church.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a few Sundays ago?
Yep.
Okay. So I would think a part of our everyday ministry work, of course, is no less thinking about how we invite people to church. But it's actually much more of a bigger or broader idea than just how do I make the invite.
Yeah.
There's a lot more things to think through. But let's just start there. So how did this start? What happened? What'd you do?
Yeah. So I've been part of a gym and I go to a group class. And so I got to know people there. And
it's not CrossFit, is it?
No, it's not CrossFit.
Okay, you're good. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So I regularly go there. I see them more than I see my friends. So I'd call these people my friends now. And so just kind of thinking as a gospel worker, how can I engage with these people differently? So I've invited different people, and some had come for a Christmas Eve service, which is more of a typical easy one for non-Christians to come to. But yeah, my friend said she would come with me. So she put it on her calendar and yeah, she came. So that's how it started. One of my gym friends that's not a believer.
Let me just interrupt. When you said that, you skipped over quickly, or at least you made it seem really easy. The smooth transition is like, hey, you want to come to church with me? Was there any kind of other spiritual conversation that led up to that? She obviously knew you were a Christian.
Yeah.
How was that?
Not any like intentional spiritual conversations. I think just my behavior is very much contrasted to everybody else at the gym.
Got it.
So, I think I stand out in that sense, not from anything doing or anything outlandish from what I'm saying, but for sure, just bold, I guess, with what I believe, or like I refrain from talking about certain things or whatever. So I think I just stand out for my behavior.
So we talk a lot about in Share the Gospel, the Matthias Media course on how to share the gospel.
Right.
We talk a lot about God talk. So it's not intentionally like, do you want to come to know Jesus? But it's God talk. It's like, I'm really grateful to God for, or this last weekend I went to church. So
yeah. So like the typical questions, the small talk is like, how was your weekend? So yeah, for sure, not excluding things because I'm worried about what they're going to think. So for sure, just saying church is always on the weekend plans.
Okay. So God obviously really put it on your heart and mind to invite her. Mm-hmm. You made the invite. You said, would you like to come to church with me? That simply?
Yeah.
That's simple, I should say. And she said yes.
Yeah.
Any hesitation?
Nope. She grew up Catholic, and so she goes to church with her grandma a couple times a year. So very much open to exploring other religions is what she would say.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're working with someone with, in theory, an open mind.
Yeah.
So take me then next steps. Did you text her the night before? How did you arrange that?
Yeah, I gave her my number and then said just to text me when she got there, and I would be there early to save her a seat. And so she texted me when she parked. So I waited for her at the main doors and then walked with her to where we were sitting. So,
which is much more of a big deal than probably we think. We just get out of our cars. We know what to do. We know where to go. But at a church, and we go to a decent sized church, it's could be very overwhelming and intimidating. And so I like what you did there. You met her at the door. You in one sense, you didn't physically hold her hand, but you connected with her. So you met her at the door. Okay.
Yeah. Even like the main doors, I don't think I've ever entered the main doors on a Sunday morning. So it's even foreign for me to like, oh, people actually use these doors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she sat with us in service. And then from there, I kind of was just thinking, not self-conscious, but just thinking differently as the service went on.
So let me stop you there. That's again, more important or more than what we might think. we go through the motions. We know when to stand. We know the language, the jargon, the songs we sing. We know oftentimes there's no notes up on the screen. We know when to go up or down. And so this is a whole new experience as you're kind of watching and listening to church, the service through her eyes and ears. Right. Yeah. So what maybe would be a couple of things that you noticed?
Yeah, I was paying more attention to what people were wearing, where people were sitting. If we were sitting too close for her comfort, was it too loud, or what did she think about the songs?
Were there any moments? And we both love our church. We're close friends with everybody on staff, so this is not anything specifically critical. But was there anything that you noticed? You thought, I bet she has no idea what we're talking about, or boy, I bet this makes her feel uncomfortable. Any moments like that that you guessed?
Yeah, I mean, for sure during the music, she's probably never heard any of those songs. And then even like a ministry moment or like corporate prayer, like any of the things happening on the slide, like is she reading that and having no idea what is that? I mean, we didn't do communion or anything that day, but that would be something that would be interesting.
So we were probably in Mark's gospel at that time.
Yeah.
Did she pull out a Bible from the pew? Did you hand her a Bible? We put those listening out here don't know this, but we put the passage up on the screens. Yeah. So you won't necessarily need a Bible, which is actually in this case good. Like she doesn't feel intimidated. Everyone pulls open their own personal Bible. Yeah. They know exactly where Mark's gospel is. She's looking around feeling, wow, I feel out of place. A lot of people don't pull out their Bibles at that point. I'm not commenting at this point. Maybe this is another episode, but whether that's good or bad. But in this case, she didn't feel out of place at that point.
No, she just had her phone and that's it.
So. Okay. Did you get the sense, and you sat right next to her?
Yeah.
Right. Did you get the sense of her body language just in the peripheral of your vision? Was she, any feel there?
No, I mean, I'd say uncomfortable. I don't know her too well, but I did at one point. She did. We have the QR code on the front of the pew that says, if you're new here, get connected. So she did at one point scan that, and she kind of tried to do it stealthily, even though I saw her do it. So that was interesting, like maybe out of curiosity, like what our website looks like or anything like that. Or maybe she was genuinely curious. Maybe she filled it out and I don't know. But nothing out of the ordinary as far as uncomfortable. I think I was just internalizing what I was, experiencing.
So let me ask you, if you did it all again, I mean, there's so many things, but what one thing would you, if you had control of the whole environment, what one thing you would change or add to help her experience?
Yeah. I told you and a couple other friends that she was coming, but the morning of, or through a text or something. So I wish I would have tag teamed a few women at least, just to say, hey, can you come over and greet her and say hello? And Lindsey said so much about you or whatever. That way she could have felt more welcome. I think she felt welcome, but nobody intentionally engaged with her other than me after the service. It's
pretty common. Yeah. I've done some, as I call it, mystery shopping for churches where I've gotten invited to do evaluation for a Sunday morning service. And I asked to come in. No one knows other than the person inviting me, usually the pastor or a ministry team. Mm-hmm. And it's been my experience. I haven't done a lot of them, but I have done enough to know that, some people might be really nice out front, welcoming, giving me a bulletin or something. Beyond that, generally not a lot of sincere engagement, which I get. It's hard. It's hard. And in a church our size, we have about, in a service, about 500 adults. Most people don't even know if the person they see has been there for 20 years or this is their first Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say, like, anybody that regularly sees us where we sit as a family, they've already noticed that there's somebody that's with us. That's not usually. So the warm lead has already been done because I'm the one that's engaged with her. And so, if I were to do it a little bit differently, I think I would have asked people to intentionally come over and say, hey, how you doing? But it was interesting just listening to the sermon. Like, I'm confident in our church that we'll share the gospel from the pulpit, and he did for sure that week. And so it was interesting just tuning in differently to his sermon with her ears in mind.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. As much as we could talk for a long time about all the trappings of a Sunday morning, which are really, really important.
Yeah.
The book, The Vine Project, actually has a whole section about this, how we welcome engaged non-Christians and evangelize outsiders through our Sunday morning gathering.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting these aren't important, but in the end, the touch point for her is not going to be how comfortable she feels. In one sense, it's the opposite,
right.
that the gospel makes someone feel uncomfortable to lead them to repentance and faith.
Yeah.
That's the only way. And this is why we believe it's the supernatural work of God.
Yeah.
Again, that's not suggesting we don't work on these other things, but like you said, the gospel has to be preached, and all these other things are very much secondary.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, you sat with service. I'm sure you walked her out the door.
Yeah, yeah.
Any conversations, text exchanges, anything afterwards?
Yeah, I texted her the day after and just said, thanks so much for coming. Because it really did mean a lot to me that she could have just slept in like a normal Sunday. So she made time for it. And so she was appreciative. And then she actually just said, would it be okay if she could bring her best friend and godson with her the next time? So she was already considering, not even 24 hours later, could I come again? And so I think our church did a nice job of just, in a way that's invitational. Like, yes, you can come again and learn some more. So I thought it was good that she said that. And so ongoing, seeing her at the gym regularly, it's a hard balance. This is where evangelism gets hard. Like, it's a hard balance of like, how do I not be annoying and nagging, but also, continue that conversation and that engagement with wanting her to come and hear the gospel. So conversations seem a little bit different, like a little bit more friendly, because she has experienced something that's important to me. And so she even asked me how my Easter was. And so just different. It's a different type of level of friendship, I guess, at the gym. So it's kind of opened more doors. So I'm trying to be open with that and lean into it, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think what you're doing is you have now crossed, maybe it's too much to say the Rubicon, but you have crossed the line where it's slightly easier to take the next step.
Right.
Because you have brought her into a context with some spiritual heat or intensity.
Yeah,
that's usually that first step is really hard, because you're working out next to each other. How's your weekend? And all of a sudden you say, have you thought about hell? That's a tough transition.
Yeah.
So we want to raise the spiritual temperature. And it sounds like you've done that just by the fact you invited her to church.
Yeah.
And then the next steps is the next kind of horizon that you're going towards is you're looking to, where can I or someone have that specific gospel conversation?
Yeah, right.
And what you've done already, you set the stage for that. You said, listen, you've seen my family, but both biological, but the people I call I'm at home with.
Yeah.
You see what I do, and it's really important for me on a weekly basis. I would love to explain to you more, because I'm sure there's a lot of misunderstandings, and you yourself said you wanted to explore other religions.
Right.
Could we maybe just grab coffee and sit down and talk about it? There's no strings attached.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you to say anything uncomfortable or bring anything out of you that you don't want to. I would love just to explain to you why this is important to me, why I invited you to church.
Yeah.
And that's that kind of the next step on that. But again, you've already done some of the hard work by taking that first step across that line. So well done. And we know in our mind the value and importance of prayer through this.
Yeah, right.
But is it expressed in our actual prayers? Like for me, I know how important prayer is, but I actually don't, because I'm not as good. I'm not as consistent with it as I need to be.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely one takeaway as I'm listening to you. But as I think through it all, like kind of the before, the during, the after, what I hear you saying is you're in the context with non-Christians. You're engaging people. For many people in a church, other than maybe their work environment or their family, that doesn't happen. So you are doing something for your own like physical body, which is good and fine as long as it's kept under control, no problem. But you're actually seeing it with new eyes. You're not just saying, I'm going to the gym to lift some barbells. I'm going to the gym to do that and to see people around me that don't know Jesus and prayerfully consider, how do I invite them to church?
Mm-hmm.
That's the other next step, or the other important thing, is that you're an inviting person. I was saying this on the Two Ways News podcast with Tony, that the thing I learned from Tony and a few other Australians is be an inviting person in life. Because it's an odd thing to do, is you never invite anybody anywhere. And all of a sudden you say, hey, do you want to come to church with me or Bible study? But if you're inviting them to coffee, to your home, to go do something, to go to the gym together, then the invite to say, come do something else that's really important to me is not as strange to them.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've oriented your life around that. You've intentionally infused God talk without being that person that's cringy. Yeah. And you've actually now thoughtfully, prayerfully considered what are next steps. As I was listening to you, Lindsey, it occurred to me, this is not just something that's up to you.
Right. Yeah.
It's all of us. You were thinking about what was being said up front by the leaders up front in service that day. You were thinking about all the people around you in the auditorium at church. You were thinking about maybe even, I don't think we talked about this, but where could she go next? With who? Because at some point, she can't just latch onto you and only go when you go or where you go.
Yeah.
So evangelism is very much personal, but it can't only be personal.
Right. It's corporate too.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
I mean, like, Jesus didn't come to build the church so that's one by one. He built it to be a body, right? We're unified with the same idea, same mission. And so we need each other.
Yeah.
And so I may be good at certain things, being inviting or outgoing with non-Christian environments, but I'm not good at other things, like talking about heady things or deep theological discussions. That kind of stuff is, so it just depends on what the Lord has given you to do in front of you, and your circles. Everybody's circle of people is different. So we all have a different exposure and who we can influence and who we can bring in, bring out. So
and this is why we actually need trellises or programs. I mean, I know they get a bad name, but the idea is that continuing on with the idea of being an inviting person, it's not just come to Sunday morning church. Now, do you want to come to Bible study with me, where someone else is leading her? She's got different voices speaking the same gospel truth to her, which is really, really important.
Yeah.
And so we're thinking not just what can Lindsey do next for her friend. We're thinking, what can our whole church do? And how can Lindsey get others involved? And what would be the next best step for her? And not to make this a big segue into a plug, but I can't help myself.
Yeah, right.
I have to plug this. This is why we're running Evangelize 2024 in Denver in October, because there are a lot of really good training ministries, resources, events out there. But we felt that we need to talk about evangelism at all levels in all areas of church life, personal and corporate, programmatic and organic. And so Evangelize 2024 is actually to try to get ministry teams to come together and think through the type of the discussion we just had.
Yeah.
What would it look like for a non-Christian to show up next to me at church? And how does that involve not just me, but the staff, what happens up front, the types of things we do out in the welcome area, and the type of programs that we follow up with, whether that's a new believers Bible study or what.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just, that's 1X. So if there's 10 people that I've invited to church, those 10 people, I can only disciple so much. And then it's a daunting task thinking about that alone on my own. And then the next step is, look, where do I put them? That's where I struggle. It's like overwhelming and burdensome, like a good burden and a good problem to have. But if you 10X me and you 10X 200 people at our church, what are we supposed to do with these people? Yeah. God willing, that would be awesome that would happen. And we want people to grow in that evangelism, but it is a problem when there's this bottleneck effect of, what do we do with these people? I don't know where to go.
Yeah. And what
overwhelmed.
The two mistakes, I should say, or the missteps that I just seen in the churches I've been part of, but churches around the country that we work with at Vinegrowers and Matthias Media, are they assume that the people who come as non-Christians, their next step is just to get them in the everyday life of the church. Yeah. That's not a terrible assumption as such, but we're almost in one sense starting to treat them as a Christian. Yeah. Now, we should treat them really well and kind and civil, and we should sacrifice for them. But we shouldn't assume that just because they might start showing up that they're a Christian. Right. Maybe she probably really likes you And if you invite her, she'll come. Yeah. But where is it that she has the opportunity to hear clearly the gospel and say, yes, I'm going to die to self and live for Christ. Right. It's not an easy thing. We've got to count the cost. Where does she get the estimate of that cost? Yeah. Our programs, our normal programs, while the gospel is infused there, it's not explicit as we would like it for someone who's not a Christian. Yeah. The other misstep is actually just leave them where they're at. We never invite them to other things because we know if we say put her into a women's Bible study or a small group that, well, it might be helpful and God can certainly do anything. Mm. There's a sense that she probably would feel overwhelmed, intimidated, not sure. And so we get a little bit hesitant. Yeah. So we either do too much, we say just go in and be part of us, or we don't do anything at all. And this is why we want to run the conference. This is why we have something like the Vine Project to think through all the kind of pathways towards hearing the gospel and responding to the gospel that we want to think through.
Yeah. Yeah. And not even just, I think that there needs to be a space for her to listen and like learn, but also a safe space to ask questions.
Absolutely.
Like, I have no clue who Jesus is. This is my first exposure ever. That's the world we live in now. Where can I go to ask questions? And that doesn't involve me, like one-on-one over coffee, for sure. I'd love that. But is there a space where we can sit and ask questions together?
Yeah. We've brought this up before. We will probably bring it up again because it's just a tangible, helpful point to bounce off of. If the studies have shown that for a new Christian, someone who doesn't have much Christian background, to become a new Christian, they've asked these new Christians how many conversations and what kind of conversations they have. They come up with a number of 50, that it takes roughly 50 conversations on specifically spiritual, gospel-oriented things, not just like, how was your day? But like, do you mean if I follow Jesus, I have to? Or it means that when I die, what happens to me? Like those kinds of conversations, 50. So you might be able to do that for one or two people in your life, as you said, but you can't do that for more than that. Yeah. And it's also really healthy to have other people. So how do we think through all our programs, all that we do? That's what Evangelize 2024 is at least going to get us starting to think about. Yeah. I'd also encourage people to pick up the Vine Project because that does a really good job at talking about those things. And don't forget, just do one more plug here. Share the Gospel is at least bringing some of these personal elements together that you talked about, Lindsey, that you did into a kind of short training course.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have people coming that have thought hard about this, and that people coming from Sydney that have ahead of us in a sense of like, how do we make evangelism work in a post-Christian world environment? Yeah. And then just, I'm excited to have everybody together thinking through and like talking about ideas together, what worked and what hasn't, and just being encouraged by everybody that's coming.
Yeah. So if you are interested in Evangelize 2024, just go to the MatthiasMedia.com website. There are many other areas we'll put in the notes that you can pick up information about this, but I'd encourage you to check out Evangelize 2024 through the MatthiasMedia.com website. This is a really important thing we're doing, not because it's us, but because of the gospel of Jesus Christ is the saving power from God.
Yeah, his glory is worth it.
His glory is worth it. That's right. So check that out. Encourage you and your team to come along. And please do keep in touch with us.
Yeah. You can connect with us on WhatsApp. So we have that started. You can find those links on our Instagram page and on our website and weekly emails. You can subscribe to our emails on our homepage. You can get connected with us there. And then also follow us on Instagram for updates. We have a separate page for our podcast, and then also the Matthias Media Instagram account for updates and links and products. So yeah.
Thanks, Lindsey. Thanks for your good gospel work. We'll keep at it. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And please come back for our next episode of Everyday Ministry.
Everyday Ministry. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Everyday Ministry. We hope you were encouraged. To continue the conversation, connect with us on our website at MatthiasMedia.com. You can also join us on our WhatsApp group to engage with other listeners and share your own experiences of everyday ministry. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Everyday Ministry Podcast for updates, behind the scenes content, whenever we get to that, and more. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.